Suzanne Morphew's remains are actually just the latest remains to be found in Saguache County, and her husband's attorneys are grabbing on to that fact.
The former sheriff of Adams County is on the other side of the law tonight, and he isn't the only one from the department facing charges.
Colorado's gun laws are about to get more strict. 2 more gun bills will become law just days away. The area where Suzanne Morphew's remains were found last Friday is actually a place where investigators have looked before and found other bodies.
That area is in southern Colorado, in Saguache County, where the town of Moffett is. But one of the big questions is, how did Morphew get there? Suzanne Morphew disappeared in 2020 on Mother's Day. Her husband, Barry, was initially charged with her murder, but those charges were dropped.
There was no trace of Suzanne Morphew for more than 3 years until now. 9 News reporter Jennifer Meckles has the latest from an area that's no stranger to investigators looking for people who've disappeared.
Some of the folks that we talked to here in Moffett today say it's really discouraging that their community is now tied to this case. They say it is not the first missing person to be found here, just happens to be the latest. Some people saw some police activity on Friday night, the same day that investigators found Suzanne's remains. They pointed us to a spot south of town off of a dirt road. Today, we found some crime scene tape here. We've asked investigators, is this in any way related to the Morphew case? Investigators are not saying anything today. They will not confirm that. Here's what we do know about this area, Moffett, and the area all around it is vast. It's quiet and it's rural. We're in the San Luis Valley here, just west of the Great Sand Dunes National Park, and about 50 miles away from where Suzanne Morphew lived in Maysville, Colorado, near Salida. It was Mother's Day 2020 when she was last seen. Investigators, family, friends, they all looked for her for a very long time with no luck. And it was somewhat of a coincidence they found her here in Saguache County more than 3 years later. Investigators were actually working on a different case when they found remains later identified as Suzanne's. A source close to the investigation told 9 News that they discovered skeletal remains, and they were able to positively identify Suzanne through her dental records and her cancer report. And while this case is now more than 3 years old, this is a huge discovery. So in a sense, it's still early in the investigation. We expect more answers will come down the road as time continues to pass in this investigation. Reporting in Saguache County, Jennifer Meckles, 9 News.
The attorney of Suzanne's husband, Barry, issued a statement this afternoon calling for an independent investigation. It also read in part, quote, "What needs to be done instead of pointing fingers at Barry Morphew is asking the officials about the number of missing people and number of human remains that have been recovered in or from Saguache County in the recent past." Prosecutors had charged Morphew with murder, but the case was dropped last year, right before the trial.
The former Adams County Sheriff and 2 of his commanders find themselves on the other side of the law tonight, charged with felonies for falsifying their own training records. Before former Sheriff Rick Regenborn lost last year's primary, investigators say he signed himself into training that he never took. The sheriff was in the headlines last year after he appeared to skirt department policy during a live-streamed pursuit of a car theft suspect. Here with more is our Steve Stager.
Sheriff?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Former Adams County Sheriff Rick Regenborn liked attention.
Looking good, Sheriff.
So much so, he used to host a frequent live stream on the department's Facebook page where he left his desk and hit the streets like a patrol deputy.
Make sure we got our lights running all the way around the car.
Now the sheriff is getting a different kind of attention. Democratic Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser charged the Democratic former sheriff and 2 of his commanders with felonies related to a scheme to falsify their own training records. Regenborn, his former undersheriff Tommy McLean, and his former training supervisor Mickey Bethel all face forgery charges, among others. Bethel is accused of logging in as McLean to take critical police training so McLean could keep his certification to be a police officer. Then there was another training in June of 2021. Investigators say Regenborn and the others signed the training roster even though they never attended class, a class where they would have learned about arrest control and driving.
Hold on. Let's see if we got a pursuit going.
Okay.
Which brings us back to those live streams.
Buckle up. Here we go.
6 months after investigators say Regenborn skipped arrest control and driving training, he was doing both in a live stream where he joined in on a pursuit from 6 miles away. After the pursuit was stopped because the driver was on the wrong side of the road, Reichenborn kept following out of his jurisdiction into Denver, where he ended up arresting the suspect.
There he is. Where? On the next block.
At the time, his office brushed off our questions about whether the sheriff was within policy when he joined the pursuit in an unmarked car with a civilian on board. Now it would appear the sheriff has more to answer for.
And Reichenborn ended those live streams after that controversy over them. He announced that the department had signed a contract to be on the TV show Cops. He ended up losing the primary to keep his job later that year. McLean and Bethel both left the department after they were placed on leave during the investigation into these training issues. Police officers are required to take 24 hours of annual in-service training each year to try to keep their certification. And if a department is found falsifying training records, they stand to lose grant funding from the state relating to that training, Tom.
So there are penalties for the department as well as individuals.
Yes. In this case, we'll see what happens because it's a new sheriff now in charge of that department. Obviously, a lot of those issues may have gone away, but it'll be interesting to see through the prosecution if anything happens to the department.
Didn't you want to say there's a new sheriff in town?
There's a new sheriff in town.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for doing that. All right, Steve, thank you.
2 police officers on trial in the death of Elijah McLean had extensive training in applying the neck hold that prosecutors allege played a role in the 23-year-old's death. They confronted McLean in 2019 as he walked along an Aurora street, headed home unarmed, not breaking any laws. Suspended Aurora police officer Randy Rodema and former officer Jason Rosenblatt face charges of reckless homicide and second-degree assault. And Aurora Police Sergeant Kevin Smith testified for hours today about the training the 2 officers received, including in the use of the so-called carotid hold that was used on Elijah. The training covered the risks of using the hold, things like unconsciousness, vomiting, both things McLean experienced. It also went into the responsibilities of officers to monitor a suspect's recovery after the hold is used. Testimony wrapped up just a short time ago and will resume tomorrow morning. A teenager has serious injuries tonight after being shot inside a Commerce City McDonald's. Police were called to the restaurant at 60th and Parkway Drive early this afternoon and found a 16-year-old hurt. Police have not mentioned what led up to the shooting or if there are any suspects.
2 gun bills will become law on Sunday here in Colorado, meaning anyone buying a firearm will now be required to wait 3 days after that purchase to take possession of it. Sponsors of the bill say research shows a cooling off period can reduce gun deaths, both by suicide and homicide. The other allows gun violence survivors and their families to legally seek accountability against gun manufacturers.
Denver Mayor Mike Johnston says the city is working to open new facilities to help the influx of new migrants coming to Denver. Once again, more than 200 migrants are arriving in the city every day. That's the most Denver has seen since May. Right now, nonprofits and other groups are sheltering the migrants who need it. But Mayor Johnston says the city is working with other community partners to open even more facilities.
House Republicans took time away from working to keep the government open, instead moving forward with their first Biden impeachment inquiry hearing, the hearing centering on allegations that the president helped his son, Hunter Biden, profit off the family name in foreign business deals. However, a George Washington University law professor said he does not believe that the current evidence supports articles of impeachment. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee pointed to the documents presented, saying that nothing shows any money going to President Biden. House Republicans say their inquiry will continue even if the government shuts down.